r/AskReddit by Redmond ETS. What is the most unorthodox way you know of that a couple has met and fallen in love? One of my cousins fell in love with my other cousin's mail order bride. The feelings were mutual. So we had a wedding and one very unhappy cousin. When my nephew was in college, they had a snow day and they cancelled classes. The students decided to put on a mock wedding just for fun, and they picked 2 students to get married. My nephew and a girl were chosen. A few years later, they did it again, for real. My grandparents told me about a woman who met her fiance's cousin during the rehearsal dinner, night before the wedding. Everyone noticed they spent an inordinate amount of time chatting that night, but no one thought anything of it. The cousin went to talk to the bride just before the wedding, and the 2 of them left together. They've been married 62 years. A guy studied to become a priest and a girl studied to become a nun. They met, dropped out, and yes, they got married. Very dark, but parents met while investigating a rape. My dad was a police officer, and my mom worked for a rape crisis center. My sister swiped the side of a guy's brand new car. She said he got out of his car, stormed over in a rage, and had a comical change of expression demeanor as soon as he got a look at her. They've been together 3 years. Also, I'm too good a driver, that's my problem. My great aunt went to Paris to study art in the 1950s, sunk into a depression, and went out to throw herself into the Seine. Along came a Frenchman who was fresh out of the Foreign Legion. He talked her off the bridge, talked his way into her heart, pants, and they both moved to Sweden together and lived happily painting together for about 40 years. My dad was a young Catholic priest and my mom volunteered at his parish helping bring food and meds etc. to elderly shut-ins. They met and fell in love. As a direct result of this, my dad was sent by the bishop to Lima, Peru, to physically, as in construction work, build a school and do some soul searching. My dad soul searched and helped build a school. He came back and told the bishop that he no longer wanted to be a priest and wanted to marry my mom. The bishop gave them his blessing and personally married them in the cathedral. I am named after the bishop. So my siblings, my mother and I are all grateful that dad chose us over his marriage to God. Maybe this isn't the best story, but it's the story I've got. Edit. For clarity, my dad was encouraged by the bishop to volunteer with Miracle for a period of time. I read a memoir of a Holocaust survivor, Magda Hellinger, who met her husband in Auschwitz. Apparently a drunk German guard who knew her by sight told her to come over one day. He started asking her weird uncomfortable questions like, "Are you married? Do you have a boyfriend?" And she says something like, No, I don't have time. I'm not really that pretty, etc. She of course wants to get away from the situation as fast as possible. But the German soldier is like, "What? No, we must find you a boyfriend. What about that man?" And points to a random Jewish prisoner who is walking by. The drunk guard tells the man to come over and essentially starts organizing a date for them. She pretends to agree but never shows up for the date. But somehow she and this Jewish man end up talking and fall in love. They both survived the camp and got married, started a family and lived the rest of their life happily together. TLDR. A hammered German guard decides to play matchmaker to 2 Jewish prisoners of Auschwitz, and they fall in love and live happily ever after. I only heard this from a friend, but I find it hilarious. My friend went to a house party with this dude. This dude decided to wear his Pikachu costume to the party, although it wasn't a costume party. Then he met her at the party. She also wears her Pikachu costume. I met them once. They were super funny. They are married. End of story. We knew each other only a little bit through friends. I was badly injured in an industrial accident. I needed time to heal. I lived alone, and it was dangerous for me not to have someone who could check on me periodically. She happened to be recovering from my surgery and wasn't able to her job or drive for a couple weeks and offered me her guest bedroom until I could safely go home. I think it felt safe for her to make the offer. I was pretty much completely incapacitated and barely ambulatory. We had an amazing 25 years before she died. I'll always love her. My brother and I took our 3-year-old niece to a toy store. I needed to pick something up for a baby shower, and my bro was flying a small plastic Incredible Hulk drone that was on display just to keep my niece entertained. The drone got tangled in this random girl's long flowing locks. My brother tried to help her get it out. He made it worse. The girl was getting pissed. And that was before my impatient niece got a hold of the controller and tried to make the drone fly while it was still tangled in the girl's hair. Somehow, out of this, my brother managed to get this girl's number, a date, and now they're married and about to give me another niece. My parents met when my dad was living with another woman and my mom was engaged. They worked at the same department store. My dad had been there longer. She didn't like him when she started there. They were in separate sections of the store and they were always trying to outdo each other. Shortly after their mutual relationships broke up, they joined the same company softball team. My dad was the coach, my mom was the pitcher. She was great in practice and absolutely tanked their first game. And he was very nice in front of the team, but absolutely roasted her at the bar afterwards. They played one-on-one tennis on their first date. And eventually these two super competitive people raised a child who grew up to be a game designer. My parents, back in the 70s, met whilst being pen pals from a certain UK newspaper. My dad was in the forces, and they basically fell in love over the course of writing letters to one another. They got married whilst only having met in person a few times, and the marriage lasted almost 30 years, until his death at a relatively young age, 52. My college roommate Jeremy saw a ridiculously beautiful woman in Target pharmacy area, senior year in high school. He walked up to her and matter-of-factly said, "So you do drugs, huh?" They've been married 15 years with a few kids. Edit. He was a senior in college, not high school, lol. There was a tornado, and the only safe rooms in the building were in the bathrooms. The women's room was already packed, so I had to go into the men's room instead. Which is exactly when and where I met my husband and had my first conversation with him, 20 years ago this year. My high school chemistry teacher took her husband square dancing, and they met another couple there. They decided they liked each other's respective partners more than their spouse, so both couples got divorced and remarried. The four of them still meet up to go square dancing. From 90 Day Fiancé. The male was catfishing the American woman. She found out, pursued him anyway, and they are still together. She called a wrong number. They got to talking. Now they are married. My high school friend's parents were in group couples therapy. The mom started an affair with another man in the group. The dad started an affair with the group therapist. Hard to believe, I know, but both new couples married and remained together until the death of one of the partners. Did the therapist lose her license? Yep. Shut down her practice. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.